She's gonna sign up. But then there'll be a power slide.
Well, good evening. Welcome to our regular council meeting. I'd like to start by acknowledging that we're holding this traditional lands of the Cloud Nation. And we're going to start the opening of the council with announcements. So we'll just go around. Councilor Armida, do you have any announcements?
I do, yes. Okay. Next Wednesday, October 25th, it's not really a community event, but I think the community will be interested because the property that's known as the Benchlands, the group that's looking at doing some development there, is doing an open house at the complex next Wednesday, the 25th, from 4 to 8 p.m. It's a large 250-acre parcel in the middle of our community. And I was at their session in April. They are coming back with some information based on the last session. So I think it'd be very valuable for those who are interested in the future development of lands in our community. It is a private development, but I think very important to do. So that's Wednesday the 25th, 4 to 8 p.m. at the complex. And I also wanted to mention October 31st, and there's probably plenty of events going on Halloween night. I will be at the event at Living Water Church, which is a very family-friendly event with plenty of carnival-like games and tons of candy for kids to get from 6 to 8 p.m. on October 31st.
You go back to me.
I will. Councilor Doughty.
Not tonight.
Councilor Palm.
Nothing, Your Worship. Sorry.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes, please. Thank you, Your Worship. So on my little list of announcements, we have the Fentanyl Forum 2023, 5 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. at the Evergreen Theater on Monday, October 23rd. Coming up. So there'll be a panel of people. You can listen to what they have to say and ask questions. There'll be a lot of information. So I encourage people who want to know about harm reduction and the overdose crises here in our community and all the things that we're doing to address that, and maybe asking questions about what is harm reduction and what is the approach. All of those questions will hopefully be answered for you at the Fentanyl Forum. It's a public-facing event trying to include the community in helping us with the overdose crises here in our community. On October the 24th, which is the very next day, at the public library, the Area 15 Sport Fishing Area Advisory Committee is meeting. They're always looking for new membership on that. It's the federal fisheries comes to town and they talk about what's happening with all of our sport fishing in the ocean in our area. I find it incredibly informative and useful, and so people who are interested in that can go to that. The Coastal Women in Business are also doing an artisan and entrepreneur show on November the 4th at the Legion. So that's going to be local artisans showing their wares, and it's being put on by the Coastal Women in Business, and that will be on the 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the Royal Canadian Legion on November 3rd. Those are mine. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Worship. Just one, Westview Ratepayers Society are having a meeting on the 30th of this month, which is a Monday in the complex, and the topic is going to be gas prices.
Oh, good.
Thank you. I have two announcements. One is for those that are in the audience that don't feel like waiting until about midnight to see item 8.3 be considered. When we do the adoption of agenda, there is going to be a motion to move 8.3 up to the second item. The other announcement I'd like to make is that back in spring, Councillor Elliott and I met with a group called Hempcrete. They had just built a house in Lund out of hemp material. And over the next 6 months, I had an opportunity to look at a production facility outside of Edmonton, have numerous conversations with people that have very successfully used as a building material. And the good news is that they would like to set up a production facility in Powell River. So over the next couple of weeks, be coming back to council with a recommendation on what we can do. We'll get the advice from staff on how we can help facilitate that. So Councillor Isaacson.
Thank you, Mayor. So I wanted to highlight the writer in residence at the public library. John McCrae is still holding public events. And so for the past few years, I believe the library has had a writer in residence, and the writer in residence this year is an outspoken slam poet, writer, and it's quite engaging. So for example, coming up Friday at 4, tomorrow at 4, there's a slam lab for people interested in how to create and perform spoken word. And then Saturday at 3, there's a more casual discussion on the nature of writing, different forms of writing. Is it all about script or is there other words? So a community discussion about literacy, storytelling, and the written word. And these are both drop-in and free at the library, just Saturday ones at 3 p.m. One thing on Halloween that I wanted to specifically reference, I know that Maple Ave is a huge source draw for the kids, but the Marina Avenue Business Association this year is encouraging people to go to stores on Marina Ave from 3 to 5 p.m. Stores will open their doors specifically for trick-or-treating. I'm sure they'll still sell their wares, but trick-or-treating is welcome along Marina Ave businesses on Halloween from 3 to 5 p.m. The museum this Saturday night, 7 p.m. is hosting one of their talks, the historical talks is happening this fall on the history of golfing and golf courses. And so if you ever referred to the old golf course lands in Townside, this is your opportunity to learn more about what that was all about, because they have some fantastic pictures of people golfing in their, the early 20th century garb of bloomers and things. Anyways, they've got some good photos, and a local author will be leading that talk. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. That local author is Hector Bouchain. A lot of you may know Hector from time he spent at the mill. Councillor Almeida.
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry, I forgot one more thing. Happening tomorrow and Saturday, actually, our senior men's hockey team, the Regals, are kicking off their season at home with 2 games against Penticton. Friday night, Saturday night, at the Hack at 7:30 p.m. Tickets are $10 at the door. Children under 12 and are free.
Thank you. All right, we'll move now.
Your Honor, or your worship. I got my words mixed up. Your worship. So the Academy of Music was really kind enough to let us know about their concert, and I thought maybe we could announce that as well, if you don't mind.
Please.
So the Academy of Music is having a concert series on October 29th at 2 p.m. They're charging $25 for tickets. And they have Allison Eastrom, soprano, Dr. Calvin Dick on violin, and Dr. Moira Austinson on piano. And they're really hoping the word for this concert spreads like wildfire, and that people will go to the, where is this at? I'm going to tell you where this is at. James Hall at 7280 Piano Street on October 29th, which is a Sunday at 2 p.m. That's when it starts. So, Powell River Academy of Music. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move now to the adoption of the agenda. And I would like to propose that in the adoption, that we move item 8.3 to follow the adoption of the agenda. So move. Second. All in favor? Thank you. So we will now move to item 8.3. We have the Powell River Community Forest Grant recommendations.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm seeking approval for the Powell River Community Forest Board's recommendations for the fall grants. You'll see that all the grants are to nonprofit organizations. One of the organizations occupies a space on city property, and that grant is requested for city property. So you'll see in the report, just as a technicality, an additional request to include these expenditures in the 2023 budget. So I'll just go through the grants very briefly, and then we'll get to the fun part of talking to the recipients and thanking them for the great work they do. So again, this is a recommendation that I bring forward through the board, who does all the hard work looking through the application. So always a huge thanks to the board. The first recommendation is Quebec Regional Cycling Association for Mount Mahoney project. The Quebec Art Council has the $60,000 budget amendment I'm requesting, and that would be for a mural on the outside of the building, a sign, as well as some internal upgrades around shelving and HVAC. The townsite ratepayers are looking for wraps for the PRV kiosks, Evergreen Family and Resident Council for a new bus for residents. Friends of Powell River is for clothing and food to support kids in need. The Anglican Church is for garden restoration. And finally, the Powell River Curling Club for a sustainable community project. With that, I'll turn it over to the board for questions.
Councillor Edison.
I think a question mostly for people listening. You mentioned that because it's on city land, the Arts Council request requires a related amendment to the financial plan. And so it's not that there's $60,000 coming out of city funds, it's coming from the community forest, but it needs to be accounted for because it is city property, just to confirm that for the votes.
Yes, through the chair, that's correct, yes.
Okay. So we have two recommendations from staff, and can those be dealt with in one?
Your worship, I suggest breaking them into two, please.
Okay, so somebody, yes, Councillor Almeida.
I move that council direct staff to amend the 2023 5-year financial plan bylaw 2715-2023 to include $60,000 in capital improvement costs for the city's crossroads building, as detailed in this council report dated October 19th, 2023, titled Fall 2023 Powell River Community Forest Grant Recommendations.
Seconded. All in favor? Pass. Yes.
I move that council approve $524,732.81 to be granted from the Powell River Community Forest Reserve Fund as recommended in Appendix A attached to this council report dated October 19, 2023, titled Fall 2023 Powell River Community Forest Grant Recommendations.
Seconded.
Your Honor, I can stop the name. Your Worship, I'd like to, this is approving all of those recommendations, right? And one of those is the Curling Club, which I think I need to clarify. I've done so in the past, so I should, is that correct? I should do so again.
Yes.
So I'd like to do that now.
Thank you very much. Okay, we have a motion. Seconded. Thank you. All right, all in favor? Oh. Did you wish? No? Okay, pass unanimously. And then I understand that we have people with us this evening that they want to say a few words. And I'm going to invite Chief Miller, who represents one of the organizations that received a grant.
Mayor and councilors, I think this is a wonderful partnership that encompasses that grant. The first is with the Townsite Ratepayer Society. I'll just read you that our vision is to ensure that the Townsite neighborhood remains the best community possible as a vital and attractive neighborhood to live in and invest, and that its history, historical character, and context are celebrated and protected. Along with that is the community forests, and they invest in the forest and they invest in our community with their profits. And for that, They help us achieve our vision for the Townside Ratepayer Society. And finally, the City of Powell River. They are coastal by nature. And I think our project, being an art project that will celebrate coastal by nature, our community, our forests, our ocean and sea life, I think everybody will enjoy it for many years to come. So a big thank you, especially to Community Forest. Thank you very much. And to the City of Powell River for their support.
Thank you, Mr. Roy. Do we have anybody else representing any of the organizations that received a grant would like to? Yes, please come forward. And just give us your name and organization.
My name is Brendan Bean, and I'm the Director of Trails from the community, the Kitsap Regional Cycling Association. And I want to say a big thank you for having us. And I just have a couple of words. I know you guys are busy and you have a huge agenda, but Mayor and Councillor, I think it's really important that you know what you voted to invest in. So we are a membership of over 500 paid members in Halver, and I think we're getting to become one of the largest nonprofit organizations in the community. We started a process about 3 years ago for Mount Mahoney, and with planning and design, and we hired professional consultants that led the network. And this whole design, we've been working really closely with all the land managers, including BC Timber Sales, the Tla'amin Nation, Rec Sites and Trails BC, BC Parks, IMBA, which is the International Mountain Bike Association Canada, and of course, Powell River Community Forest, including their forester who donated a lot of his time to support our effort. And we were supported financially to begin our project from Sunshine Coast Tourism. This network will bring in untold tourist dollars. We're already seeing the cycling usage grow exponentially. People are familiar. We've had BC Bike Race here for 10 years. Unfortunately, right now, I think mostly due to BC ferries, they're not able to come here. However, the draw now for more different styles of biking, downhill, enduro, as well as the cross-country network that we have is blowing up. I don't know how to explain it anymore, but I think there were roughly 200 riders this weekend on Mount Mahoney. We're thrilled to accept the support of the city and the Powell River Community Forest. Accepting this for a bigger kind of picture of our vision. This is a $4 to $5 million project. So this is something that we can leverage over the next 2 to 4 years to develop. We're developing RFPs. We're just waiting for some final pieces within the province and the nation. We're doing a full archaeology review to make sure that we're doing this in a respectful way. And we just want to say thank you because we're able to leverage it and start this. What we think is a significant impact, not just for our community, for our own riders, but will affect the economics and draw to the community. So just thank you very much, and thank you to Powell Forest.
Thank you very much. Would anybody else like to say, please?
Evening. Thank you. My name is Laura Kissick. I'm here on behalf of the Evergreen Resident and Family Council. I really wish I had flashcards or something. It's I'm here to thank you on behalf of them for the monies to go towards the cost of our bus. We are so fortunate to live in this community. We're thankful for the hospital auxiliary that raised a large portion of that money for us, and for this final portion. Hopefully that means Vancouver Coastal Health will be able to put out a news release shortly saying that we'll be having a new bus for our residents. And this is a real huge quality of life issue for us. Ever since COVID, we were locked up indoors. We haven't been out. We can't get out. It feels like going on for 4 years. So we are so excited about being able to get out into our community forests and taking residents out and going shopping. Things that Powell River has to offer outside of our building. And this is the third time I've stood in front of you for the Community Forest Grant. So I want to put a special thank you for a former project that we did with Ian Snyder, who's our secretary, who's hiding in the audience, for the revamp of our garden.
That saved us during COVID, having that outdoor space to go to, because it was a place we could be outdoors.
I'll stop talking now. Thank you.
Good evening, Your Worship and Council and members of Community Forest. I'm Sean Garvey. I'm the president of the board of Powell River Curling Club. I'm here this evening to express our deepest gratitude to the council and to Community Forest for the grant monies which you've been so generous to provide us with over the years. This year especially, this money will be going towards, as mentioned, a sustainability project, which is really focused on opening up our interior, because if anyone's been through recently Cranberry, they've noticed the exterior taking quite a turn over the last couple of years. Since 2018, we've been the benefactors of $203,000 from Community Forest for a variety of different projects, which has leveraged a variety of other grant funds up to a total of $590,000, which has enabled us since 2018 to have capital improvement projects totaling around $850,000, some of which you've seen, exciting. We put some solar panels on the roof to reduce our costs and to be more green within the community, support those types of initiatives. And we've also replaced our plant, which had failed a couple of years ago coming out of COVID. And this money will be very important because we are trying to refocus a lot of our energies, not just within the community for our members, but we're trying to open up our facility to the community as a whole to try to create a more social hub through partnerships we're trying to build within the community. And these funds will be very instrumental in doing that. And again, our deepest gratitude, thanks again to the council as well as Community Forest.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I represent St. David and St. Paul Anglican Church in the Old Town site. We're here to thank you for allotting our grant. It's to put in an in-ground irrigation system in Sycamore Gardens, which has been suffering from drought for the last 2 years. It's a permaculture garden, has over 100 varieties of fruit trees and herbaceous plants. It's all free to the local neighborhood. People can come and pick the fruit, take the herbs, whatever they need. And we did have a vegetable garden, but over the pandemic, it fell into disuse. We have plans to reinstigate that as well. So if you hadn't given us this money for the irrigation, we probably wouldn't have been able to save the garden and it would have ceased to exist. So we're here to thank you very much, and the Powell River Board. Thank you.
Mayor and Council, thank you for considering the Friends of Powell River. We began this program in 2006 when I worked at Henderson School. We noticed the widespread need for student assistance with clothing, food, even personal hygiene products. We have done a lot of work in this community since then. Throughout the school district, we encompass all of the schools, and we are supporting all of our kids in need, including the Brooks Offsite program and the high school. So we are lessening the burden of poverty in our schools with our kids. Somebody needs something, they reach out to me. Within 24 hours, that need is fulfilled. We have seen kids that were struggling, families that couldn't get by, lessen the burden, and then things just happen naturally. And we've seen that over and over again. We appreciate all your support with our program. When COVID hit, the schools were closed, but the need for food still was there. We worked with local restaurants and different organizations to make sure that the kids at school still got their lunch. Didn't matter what area they lived in, we made it happen. I'm pretty proud of that. And there's always so many people in this town that help us. So what we do is we support local businesses. They support us by giving us discounts on clothing, and we support our kids. So I want to just thank you guys all for letting us continue our support with these kids and make sure that they get what they need when they need it in a timely manner and anonymously. It's very important to us that everybody feels respected and that it's anonymous. So thank you again to the Community Forest Foundation. Thank you.
Okay, do we have anybody else? I would just like to encourage all of you that when you see an opportunity, Mr. Galinsky, who's sitting over there, would probably be very happy to come out and take a picture showing how you're using the community forest money. So I hope that's fine with you, Mr. Galinsky.
Yes, Your Worship.
Thank you. So, Councillor Fong.
Yes, Your Worship. If I may, I would like the members of the Community Forest Board please to stand.
Yeah.
So the reason I do so is that all these community-minded fine people that are here tonight and all of the others that have come forward over the years, it's always so impressive to see all the good work that's being done in our community. And $25 million later, over 15 years, provided by our community forest has enabled that to happen. So when you come up and you thank council and you thank community forest, I feel a little sheepish sitting up here receiving the thanks, because it's the gentlemen that are standing tonight and their fellow members that do the hard work to make this possible. And I just wanted to make sure that recognition is going in the right direction. So thank you to our community forest, and thank you to all our community members for all the fine work that you're doing in our community.
Yes, I understood there was going to be a photo also.
It's up to your worship. Typically, all the recipients, the council would get together and have a photo together, and I don't know, they bring that big check.
Well, we love check.
It's training time.
Is that a promissory note?
That's okay with folks that represent the organizations that receive the grant. We usually get a photo of everybody, just the community thing. Council's also I don't know if it's a good spot to do it.
Perhaps in front of the
Let the Galinsky make the decision.
What do you think? Yeah, the ball?
Otherwise, we can.
Let's leave it out of your.
Yes, thank you. I'm just gonna hold this one out here. you very much. This work don't leave her alone. Off the line for you. You're back. So you get to the lens here, all smiling, the motion and eyes open as well. Okay. And camera. Perfect. What a great looking curve. Try again. And again. And one more for Gloucester.
Yeah, Curly.
Hi, Sean. I'm a curling leader.
Hey, Brennan.
You need to make your own team and call it tomorrow.
Microphones are on.
Sorry.
All right.
3.1, your worship.
3.1, minutes of the regular council meeting held October 5th, 2023.
I'll move we adopt minutes from October 5th, of the special meeting and the regular meeting.
Okay, we have the motion, secondary, all in favor? Thank you. We'll now move to committee reports. Meeting the whole meeting held September 12th, 2023 minutes.
I wasn't there. Was, what's yourself out there?
Thank you, Worship. The minutes are available, attached to this agenda. I think I'll just mention that we had a couple of delegations. Incidentally, the minutes don't mention who chaired that meeting. However, that's incidental. We had correspondence regarding the shuttle service to Blackberry, community engagement reports, which were pretty extensive. A report to disambiguate modular homes from mobile homes, and we just had a wonderful public consultation or a meeting here yesterday put on by the planning department that followed that up. We did review permissive tax exemptions and sewer parcel tax rates, and those were both coming to this meeting. And that was pretty much it for that meeting.
Any questions? If not, we will move to item 7.1. The Transit Improvement Program 3-year transit expansion. Brought forward from the committee of the whole, October 17, 2023. Councillor Almeida.
I move that council support the city signing a memorandum of understanding MOU with BC Transit to apply for provincial cost share funding for 2,000 hours of additional service hours for routes 1 and 2 and frequency improvements to Route 1 starting in 2025.
Yes.
And that council directs staff to include an annual net cost of $184,415 for BC Transit Services in the 2024 5-year financial plan to start in 2025 and continue annually after receiving final approval for BC Transit.
Secondaries by Councillor Elliott. Yes, Councillor Silcock.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, I just want to say I'm glad to see this as transit becomes more and more important in our community. This will upgrade 2025 will upgrade service to the town site and the route north and also the Grief Point route. The one thing I'm disappointed about is that BC Transit chose Kelowna to run their trial for an app-driven bus like our Zunga bus instead of Powell River. However, it seems like when you're in their business, they get to call the shots, and hopefully we can maintain that until BC Transit sees fit to help us fund that part of the service, which is becoming increasingly useful and essential here in our community. Thank you.
Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Your Worship. I said it right this time. So part of these improvements will be to decrease the amount of time that people have to wait for the bus between buses. They're going to be going to closer to a 30-minute wait, and this should improve access for coffee shops, businesses in the downtown to people who bus instead of driving. So it's a move for poverty reduction. It's a move to support the downtown business core that really, really needs it. With allowing more people to get there when they want to. It's a move to help workers get to and from work on a better schedule. So these are all things that are super important to Powell River. I would also be in favor of some sort of lobby effort to try and get the Ministry of Transportation to continue to fund our Zunga bus in the interim to when we can transfer over to the regular transit service, but that would be a different motion with it. We did a concerted effort around lobbying last year about this time. I think we need to do that again, given that it's not in the plan yet. So that's what I just said.
Councillor Isaac.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to raise, for those of you who didn't listen on Tuesday, Councillor Palm raised a great question with the staff member from BC Transit. There is a note in the report saying that if we sign an MOU and decide later on to back out and that we don't want these improvements and to pay for them, that the lease fees for any vehicles will be charged to our operating budget for a year. And we wanted to know what might those costs be, and what BC Transit actually does is if there is a bus that a community kind of reneges on the MOU, there's often in his experience, always another community that's interested in that vehicle and they haven't had to pursue lease fees with other communities. And so if that's a concern that you saw in the report, Councillor Palm raised that at the last meeting, and I think that was answered to our satisfaction.
We have a motion on the floor that's been seconded. All in favor? That's unanimously. Thank you. We'll now move to item 8, which is reports for decision, and 8.1 is the 2024 budget engagement results.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm presenting the results of the 2024 budget engagement process. This year we conducted 2 online surveys and did an open house. And the first survey was the Balancing Act budget simulation survey, which we've done in the past, and it allows respondents to balance the budget, increase some items, decrease other items. And the second one was a prioritized survey. And the report explains that we put that one in as additional survey, sort of at the request of our initial budget meeting, was what other surveys are there, what other data could we get? So once respondents finished balancing the budget, we had a pop-up requesting, inviting them to do another survey. And we only had 19 responses, but we think that it was just a good trial to see what that data looked like. So that second survey was called the Prioritized Survey. And the third engagement effort was the Budget Public Open House. Now, all of these efforts were done in September because the feedback from our last budget engagement last year was to move it up earlier so that respondents can better inform the budget process and there's more time for the feedback to be considered. So we responded by moving the engagement to September, and I would recommend in my report that for 2025, we consider moving it to in between draft 1 and draft 2 of the budget. The feedback was that it's difficult for the public to engage when there's nothing on the table, which I completely understand. So my proposal, I hope, will allow for early enough in the process that the feedback can still be incorporated in the 2025 budget, but late enough in the process that we have something on the table to discuss. So now on to the results of 2024 engagement. We'll start with the budget simulation. Now, the budget simulation did attract 818 visitors to the website, which is great. We did only receive 69 submissions, down from 88, which I believe is due to timing. So keep in mind that these results are not statistically significant. So they don't reflect the general population. However, it does not mean that they're not valid for consideration. So in summary, there were increases and decreases to certain items. And we can categorize those items as either revenues and expenses. What you'll see on the screen is a total of the responses. So all the total changes for each item divided by the number of responses. And so for revenue, the top 3 proposed to increase were fees and charges, government transfers, and other revenues to the tune of just over 1% tax increase, which is 200,000. And the main revenue item to decrease was property and parcel taxes by about 870,000. And that would be a 4% decrease to that line item. For increases on the expense side, the top 3 were roads and transportation services, planning and cultural services. And the top 3 expenses proposed for decrease were recreation services, police services, and transit services. There was also comments provided in the budget simulation, which are included in the appendix, and I won't try to summarize those, but they're there for anyone who'd like to read through. The budget simulation survey, there's kind of this graph here is a bit of a popularity contest. Which category was interacted with the most? So the categories that were most interacted with was cultural services, transit, and fire. It's funny timing. And right on cue. And then the least were other revenue, fees and charges, and government transfers. What this data shows is generally what are people interested in changing. And now, as far as the respondents, just to give you an idea of where the respondents are coming for the survey, as far as the neighborhoods, the respondents were very representative of the neighborhood population. So you can see on the chart there, those graphs are very similar distribution amongst the 4 neighborhoods. So pretty equal representation neighborhood-wise on the survey. As far as the age group goes, there was the majority are between the ages, oh my,
30 to 41.
Thank you very much. 30 to 40. I do not need glasses. And that's so I keep saying. And my device, about half was on desktop, and the second highest was on mobile phone, which is handy to know for our campaign strategy. So that's the budget simulation, provides some data for council consideration. Now the prioritized survey, again, there was only 19 respondents, so very much taking it with a grain of salt. But I will explain the survey. We identify all the services of the city, and it's similar to that graphic that we had at the open house. And then respondents can drag and drop the services that they value into a different section. And then they prioritize that section. So a service will get points for getting dragged and dropped initially, and then it'll get more points depending on how it's ranked. So that's what the points mean. And so we can see here, the highest ranked service was roads, then water, and then garbage and recycling. And on the lower end, it was public meetings and engagement, city harbor, and museum. Ironically, the engagement there. So that's the prioritized survey, providing some feedback. It also provided some comments for consideration. For the open house, again, we've summarized all of the anonymous feedback that was received for consideration. So with that, I will end the presentation and open the floor to questions.
Councillor Edson.
Thank you, Mayor. Not any questions. I just want to express appreciation for us to our willingness to try new things. So having an early open house, maybe the timing doesn't work out, but we wouldn't know until we tried. And I like the experimentation with this the second part of the survey. And I know, we're way ahead of our schedule for next year, but in terms of input, I'm learning as part of this process what works for residents, but also what information is helpful for me to make different decisions and how community feedback can influence me and I can learn from community. And so I would be curious next year to explore a different surveying tool. I don't know exactly what that might look like, but I would love for us earlier on to explore options. I don't think that the balancing act informs me the way that it would find useful. And I think if we were to share a draft one of the survey for people to react to, for them to react to find their feedback on that budget as opposed to services in general. But overall, I mean, I always appreciate reading the comments, just as I appreciate reading emails from the public. And so I think your recommendation is spot on. And I look forward to, experimenting in the future. Public engagement is not the wheelhouse usually of financial services in the city, right? And so I do appreciate your willingness to work with us to try things. So thank you.
Question. Have you considered asking the ratepayers associations to encourage their membership to participate in this review?
Through the chair, no, we didn't do direct marketing that way, I believe, through the communications group, but I can certainly jot it down for next year. That's a great idea. Thank you.
Councillor Doug.
Yeah. Thanks for doing all the work to make this happen. I want to spend some happy time with all the directors at the rec center for the public consultation. I think the public consultation is a great idea. Much more significant to me if we have more than 3 or 4 people representing the entire public. And I think what you suggested is that having something solid to talk about, like a first draft of the financial plan, would provide a lot more useful information. And point out again that the more people we hear back from, the better it is and the stronger that reaction is. And you hear from a small number of people, there are another 13,000 people out there who haven't heard from yet. And the more we can hear from, the better. Point, I brought this up at the Wildwood Ratepayers last week, I think, or 2 weeks ago, anyway. And nobody in the room other than myself and Councillor Southcott were aware of the Balancing Act and the community consultation. So, I think we need to find better ways of communicating the fact that these options are available. And then hopefully we will get a stronger turnout from the community. But I don't think we're at the end of the consultation yet. We're at the beginning and we've got lots more. And I'm encouraging everybody to take a look at the city's website and look at all the budget consultations that are still to come and show up in the room here and give us their comments when they're back on the agenda. But thanks for the work you're doing. It's interesting. And one day it'll be perfect.
Yes, thank you, Worship. I want to thank you for all your fine work. When it was first proposed to reach out in September, I thought that might be a little premature, but it is what it is. We've got to start. So my question is for the public and on a go-forward basis. When is our next engagement and that first draft coming?
Through the chair, the draft 1 of the budget will be on November 2nd at the council meeting. And I really hope we have many residents here to ask questions and provide their feedback.
We have a recommendation from staff. That's where we need it.
I move that the 2025 budget public open house and engagement surveys will be scheduled for after draft 1 and before draft 2 of the 2025 5-year financial plan.
Seconded by Councillor Southcott. All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. Now move to 8.2, Council Policy 261, Community Partnerships.
So staff are proposing a strategy to update Council Policy 261, Community Partnerships, at the request of Council. This policy guides the distribution of annual financial support to nonprofit organizations, and it's separated into 4 categories. Arts and culture grants, which goes to Quebec Art Council, Powell River Community Forest, community grants and aid and grants in kind, and permissive tax exemptions. The proposal is to use funds from the COVID Restart Reserve to hire a consultant who is experienced in engagement and policy development and relations with nonprofits to update this policy. And the reason that this is the proposal is because the complexities of this project. So this policy includes 4 granting programs, as I mentioned, and it distributes roughly $1.7 million in annual financial support, which is very significant. It reaches 100 organizations on average, and that's a massive number of organizations to engage in the process of updating the policy. As well, there's 2 key stakeholders, the Community Forest Board and the Quebec Art Council, who would be a big part of the participation in the project as well. And I would say also knowledge of the granting community in the Quebec Regional District would be a key desirable experience for a potential consultant, because I think one of the strategies is to align with the other granting organizations. We would need someone who has that specialized knowledge. So for those main reasons, staff recommend a budget amendment so that funds can be spent from this reserve to support this project. That would be a collaboration between staff, the city, and those stakeholders involved. So I put it out to council for questions. That concludes my report on that topic.
We have the Councillor Hyde.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I've been really looking forward to this coming to council because I often have had many questions and opinions about how we do this. One question is, there's 2 ways I think that we support community organizations that aren't on the list of 4. One of them is, and I forget the phrase, something like contract with services, like the annual agreements we have with a couple of organizations that are, I think, mostly tourism focused, but there's a couple of annual agreements that we have that aren't grants and that don't come towards council other than in the budget, and then also below market leases. And I'm wondering if there's a reason that those 2 are not on the list here.
Through the chair, those items aren't administered through the policy, but part of this process, and one of the recommendations for, my voice will be around the table as well, will be for those items, guidance on those items to be in that policy, because then I think it captures the full financial benefit that everyone is receiving. So those aren't on the list because the policy currently doesn't include them. But as we start the process of updating the policy and we look at scope, I think those are 2 wonderful ideas to be considered to be included in the policy going forward.
We have the recommendation from staff. We have somebody wishing to move a motion, and then we have further discussion. Councillor Tom.
Thank you, Worship. I'm going to read the motion. For council, I will recommend that council direct staff to amend the City of Powell River 2023 5-year financial plan, bylaw 2715, 2023, to include a consultancy contract to update council policy 261, community partnerships, investment through grants, and permissive tax exemptions funded up to $30,000 by the COVID-19 Safe Restart Reserve.
Seconded by Councillor Almeida. Yes, Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I have a question about in-kind grants. Is that part of one of these categories, or is that something different?
Through the chair, yes, it's part of category 3. Okay. It was grouped into grant and aid and grant in kind together.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Pom.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I want to thank staff for working on this, and I know it's a very complicated matter, especially when you're dealing with all the entities. So I really appreciate you bringing this forward because we're not sure about our finances going forward at the moment in terms of the city. So all the work that we do in this regard are, in my estimation, is preemptive. Thank you very much.
So, Councillor Isaacs.
Yeah, one thing that a recommendation as you move forward. I know, I feel like this policy could be a very political one in terms of it being about staff or about council direction. And I know there's some of it is procedural in nature, but some of it is political in nature. And so, given what I'm learning about council and staff processes, I would really like to see council have an early conversation, maybe even before an RFP goes out, so that we're clear as a council what success looks like. What do we want to see as an output? What do we want to see as an outcome as a result of that output policy? What do we want to see in the process so that we attract the right person with that RFP and they're able to fulfill council's wishes and we get to the end and we're not in an end point where we feel like, oh, actually we wanted something a little bit different. Can you go back out on these things? So some early direction and some fulsome discussion. I would really love to see that. Possibly even before it goes out to RFP so that we hire the right person, because the council has an idea for a focus. We might want a slightly different person who has more or less experience in a certain area. The municipal public engagement, engaging with the nonprofit community, granting experience, finance policy development. Those are pretty broad categories that there will be people that can do, but making sure that we're clear what we really want and what our priorities, I think would help make sure that the process and the outcome is what we're going to be excited about and not just like, well, I guess we tried really hard and we got some input and this is pretty good, but I would love for it to be excellent, especially since we're investing community money and trying to make it excellent. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. My sentiments are somewhat similar to Councillor Isaacson's. I wish to acknowledge really good work that's been done with exactly the consideration that this recommendation targets. In the past, there was a committee that I think sat for about 1.5 years studying exactly this policy. In fact, this policy was a result of the work of that committee, ultimately. So also, your predecessor, CFO Langemeyer, did some very good investigative work and wrote some very good reports, detailed reports with a lot of information that I think, as Councillor Isaacson suggests, could inform council to be as well informed as possible, because this is critical work. This is managing a lot of money, albeit it is for community development, which I think this community really has excelled in traditionally over many years. And it is why we have such socially, culturally, such wealth in what we share in terms of the assets that we share here. They have been managed well. So, but we're coming into times where I think we're going to be tightening our belts. I don't think there's any question about that. And the $30,000 I think is a good investment in being as conservative and careful as we can. So I really take this project very seriously, and I agree with Councillor Isaacson for us to be as prepared as possible. Thank you so much for doing this.
Councillor Kelly,
Thank you, Your Worship. My first thing was just a question about the report. So I'm very much in favor of moving forward with some policy exploration for this area. I've been making lots of noise about how we want to get better at putting the money where it's going to be to the betterment of the community and making those choices based on value added in the community and putting it where it's going to do the most good, as opposed to just broad brushing all organizations. We can use it as an incentive for community priorities. And so finding a way to do that in balancing that with, treating everybody fairly and having a process that is administratively possible for you, Mallory. Sorry, Ms. Dennis. Yeah, CFO Dennis. So yeah, let's get on with it. And I guess there's going to need to be some sort of inclusion of the council for structuring a bit of it as well. So.
Okay. We have a motion, and Councillor Elliott has said we should get on with it. All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you.
Let's do this.
So we now move to item reports for information. Report from municipal directors of the Fifth Regional District. To either of the directors.
Mr. Mayor, there has been no municipal directors attending a regional district meeting since our last opportunity to report.
Thank you. We will then move to item 10, which is bylaws. And the first 10.1 is a permissive tax exemption bylaw, public notification motion. We welcome back our CFO.
Hi, everybody. Starting points to speak. And so on the topic of permissive tax exemptions as well, staff are seeking permission for consideration on the public notice for permissive tax exemptions. Now, the proposed permissive tax exemptions do require advertisement, public notification in the newspaper in consecutive weeks, and this must occur before October 31st before the adoption deadline of these bylaws. The deadline was missed for the intended advertising, and so staff, in lieu of the traditional advertisement in the peak for the first week, have made great efforts to include an insert into the paper. It does not go into all the papers, but it goes into a large portion. We've also initiated a campaign online with the peak to advertise the permissive tax exemption bylaw and have posted on our website and have done advertising as well. And in the second week, it will be the routine permissive tax exemption advertisement directly in the paper. So staff are just, as a formality, seeking approval on whether this approach is an equivalent use to the publication of notice in the printed version of newspaper, as outlined in Community Charter Section 94.
Great. We have a recommendation from staff. Yes.
I can move that and we can move into discussion if needed. I'll move that further to October 5th, 2023, Council Resolutions 23, 164, 165, 166, and 167 in relation to proposed permissive tax exemption bylaws. Council has considered public notification requirements to determine that newspaper notice requirements of Section 94 and 94.1 of the Community Charter are satisfied by placement of an advertising insert of the notice in the newspaper for the first week and regular advertising notice in the newspaper for the second week, with supplemental notice advertised provided through online PRP advertising, posting on the city's website, and posting on the public notice board in City Hall.
Yes, seconded by Councillor Almeida. Yes, Councillor.
Thank you. Yeah, I support these in terms of satisfying legislative requirements, but obviously I also encourage Facebook's, Facebook page, and also the Instagram profile itself, so that people can share it to their stories. People can't share stories. So this is sufficient legislatively, but I think there are some other promotional options that we can take advantage of. I can get too into the details of staff work, but public notice is always important.
Great. Councillor Elliott.
So I'm wondering, do we have a town crier that could run around? Because that was something that's done in the past, right? You could send out Mayor Watson, like extra. Yeah.
4 o'clock and all's well.
Yeah. We could have them ride around on a fire truck.
So you can send any of the job descriptions. Because it is.
Councillor Self to that.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. I received an insert, with the paper today, which I took notice of even more than if it had been printed in the paper, I think. So I think their intentions are even better served by the alternative. That's just my That's my impression. Thank you. Councilor Nader.
Thank you, Your Worship. And just for clarity for the community, as Councilor Shustott said, those who subscribe to the Peak did get it with their paper today. You don't have a Peak subscription. They are available in the midweek drop boxes around town as well. So you saw a random stack of paper sitting on top of the midweek. It wasn't just junk mail. It is designed from the city, official legal document for you to take as well that you can have.
So we have a motion, seconded, all in favor? Passed unanimously. And we now move to 10.2 proposed bylaw 2731, which is the sewer parcel tax.
Would you like me to read it?
Please.
I move that proposed sewer collector system bylaw 2731 2023 be adopted.
Seconded by Councilor Shustott. All in favor? Passed unanimously. 10.3 proposed bylaw 2732, which is the sewer parcel tax. Yes, Councilor Edges.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move that proposed sewage treatment and disposal system bylaw 2732 2023 be adopted.
Seconded by Councilor Anita. All in favor? Passed unanimously. 10.4 sanitary sewer user rate bylaw. Yes, Councilor Elder.
I move that proposed sanitary system user rates bylaw 2733 2023 be adopted.
Seconded by Councilor Almeida. All in favor? Passed unanimously. We'll now move to 11, which is unfinished business. 11.1 is the Harbor User Advisory Committee. Councilor Dowd.
I'll move that the council establish a harbor users advisory committee whose purpose will be to advise council on concerns and issues regarding the North, South, and West View harbors. The council directs staff to collaborate with Councilors Southcott and Palm to create a draft terms of reference, including a committee application procedure for the Harbor Users Advisory Committee to be approved by council, so that the committee will be comprised of users of the North, South, and West View harbors, city staff, and a limited number of councilors, and the terms of reference be presented to council at or before December 7th, 2023 regular council meeting. If there's a seconder, I'll talk
Seconded
about
by
that.
Councilor Almeida. Councilor Dowd.
So this all outlined in the report. This all came out of consultations that council had starting in the spring of 2022 about North Harbor, South Harbor, and West View Harbor rates that are charged for people mooring their boats. We've got 3 harbors. Each one is a little bit different than the other. North Harbor tends to be people with long-term leases. It's hard to get into. It's about a 2-year waiting list to get there. It's recently constructed by the city, and it's designed to pay for itself and its renewal over a period of time. South Harbor, I think, is older than the North Harbor and has been in place for some time, but it's a combination of residential and pleasure boat users and a commercial harbor that has fishing boats, various people that run diving operations and other commercial uses of that harbor. And it includes a loading space for things like water taxis and other items that are available there. The Westview Harbor is a place where our Coast Guard vessels are lined up, the Coast Guard cutter and the inflatable one that they have, and it's more designed to be a transitory harbor, make sure that space is available for people who are going up and down the coast, and provides a place to stop and take advantage of things that are going on in the community. So when we were going through those North Harbor rate increases, we had a number of packed open houses. I think anybody who was on council at the time we were doing that would recognize there were people standing around all of the walls in council chamber. And one of the things they brought up many times is there needed to be more consultation between the people that are using the harbor, the staff and council, so that all of the issues could be brought up and addressed quickly. Be they maintenance issues or just the rules of the harbor or questions that harbor users and staff had of each other. So I'm putting this forward today in hopes that it will be passed and we can work with staff to get a detailed terms of reference, figure out how to have a fair proportion of representatives. Each one of those harbors is a little different. Should have particular representatives understand what's going on. And hopefully we can get somewhere. Improve communication, improve the services we have, and perhaps even be more welcoming to people who are traveling up and down the coast and spending a lot of tourist dollars in our neighborhood. So the comments I've heard from people on the docks that I bump into on a regular basis are they're waiting to see this, and I'd like to see you get support.
Yeah, Councilor Isaacs.
Yeah, I have a question for staff. I seem to remember a motion that passed sometime around when we were having a harbor waste discussion. Is there already this sort of motion on the books?
So through your worship, so November 24th, last year, Finance Committee, there was direction. It was direction that staff bring back a report about the establishment of a committee. It was very simple like that. And that was on hold pending your strategic plan and whether it's going to be priority or not. So that motion is on there. However, what Councillor Dowd's putting forward is much more detailed and would override that previous one.
Councillor Silva.
Thank you, Worship. The corporate officer kind of gives me a segue here. I appreciate Councillor Dowd bringing this motion forward. Having been involved with the harbors for a long time and having had many conversations like you have, Councillor Dowd, down there, I do support this. There's one, I'd like to propose an amendment, and then I'll speak to the amendment. The amendment that I'll propose would replace in the last line of the recommendation, the language is at or before the December 7th council meeting. And I would like to replace that with the language contingent on priorities established in council's strategic plan. So there's a seconder. This is to address the seconder I'll speak to. Thank you.
Well, me is seconded.
Clearly, having the contact, as I mentioned, with the harbor, I want to see this. I want to see this done. But my one little but is that I do feel that this is part of, this is one of the priorities that is in a collection of priorities in our strategic plan. Now, in our last term, we had the strategic priorities work plan and a council action list. We haven't got that far yet. So we don't actually have a way to clearly delineate our priorities when it comes to actions that relate to our strategic plan. And our strategic plan at this point, I don't feel is entirely complete either. So I know this is a priority for our new CAO, and I think it's a priority for us to have that completed. So my amendment would possibly delay this particular work. But I really want to see this included in our larger view of what our priorities truly are, and that relates to our strategic plan. I couldn't, in all good conscience, not put forward this amendment. Thank you.
Yeah, Councilor Hill.
I'm going to speak against that amendment. I'll explain why. The reason I made a notice of motion was to get this on council's agenda, to get it done now. I don't think it's going to take a huge amount of staff effort or council effort for the terms of reference. We've done those terms of reference before. People have been telling me they want this committee to happen. There was a request for a report in November 2022. We haven't got that report yet. There was a deadline that I put in writing in the motion, and that I thought we could get through. We could figure out the terms of reference, figure out the numbers of people that could be on the committee, hopefully have that approved in December, and be looking for people to participate in the committee in January. It would be nice if we had a strategic plan with a set of goals and objectives and particular actions, but we don't. We didn't have it in November last year. We don't have it in October of this year. And I don't know when we will have it. So I don't want to amend it because I want to get that committee going. Because we said to council, I did, and others who were around the table at the time, said it's a good idea. We should get that committee going. And I don't want to see it held up with other things while we're trying to get a conclusion on what we do with every other strategic priority. It's, I think it's a key to having a timeline on there, because that's what makes it work. If we take the timeline away, we'll be talking next year about when we'd like to talk about maybe having a committee something. Opposed to the amendment.
We have Councilor Isaacson.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I'm kind of in line with what Councilor Scott's been sharing. I would support this amendment and not the original motion, but I think supporting the amendment just kind of means supporting status quo, which I understand Councilor Dowd is frustrated with. I think what, as a result of this coming from council, what we and staff are seeing is there's a pent-up demand of things that we as councillors and mayor want to achieve that we haven't been able to because we haven't had the chance to collectively give staff direction through a strategic plan. So I acknowledge that frustration, but of all the things that I want staff to get going on at this time before we have a strategic plan, this doesn't rise to that priority level for me. So I would support the amendment, but I that's just status quo. I would acknowledge that.
Thank you, Worship. When we had this discussion some time ago, when the original motion was made, I was a strong advocate for putting a committee such as this to work so that we could listen to the public directly and take input and make that harbor facility a better operating facility than it is at present. I think it's long overdue. I agree with all the good people that were in this gallery, and a lot of them will be coming forward, I believe, to serve on this committee. So I'm with Councillor Dowd. This needs to be moving forward so that we can hear from the public, because simply, I'm going to say this with very tenderly and not in any negative fashion, but one of the things that is I'm hearing out on the street is that this council, because of all the upheaval and everything we've had over the last year, is not engaging the public on the basis that they would like to be engaged. And that communication needs to develop. It needs to happen sooner rather than later. And this is just one step in that regard. So I fully support the original motion, and let's move forward. Let's communicate and start the process.
Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Your Worship. I also support the original motion. This isn't something that's been a year in the making. I've been in office now since 2018, and there's been issues in the harbor, all of the harbors, the entire time I've been here. We talked about it in the previous council. We talked about this committee for quite some time now. It was part of my campaign promising, because that's how big of an issue it's been the entire time I've been here. it's written up on my website as to what I thought should happen there, and it's exactly this. So I don't think I'm going to change my mind while developing a strategic plan. I haven't changed my mind the entire time that it's been coming up for the last 5 years. And so I'd like to get on with it. And so I don't support the amendment.
Okay, so we have an amendment on. I'm going to call the vote on that amendment. All in favor of the amendment? Opposed? Okay, now we're going to move to the motion. All in favor of the motion? Opposed? Okay, this passed regardless. Thank you. That was the main motion. Okay. So we now move to questions with Mr. Galinsky.
Thank you, Your Worship, for the opportunity to pose a couple of questions. My first is in relation to item 7.1, the Transit Improvement Program 3-year transit expansion. I'm wondering about the tax implications of the $184,415 per annum that is being proposed through this particular initiative. It strikes me that would be about 1.3 or 1.4% increase in annual taxation. And so I'm wondering if I'm correct in that figure.
The chair, it's just shy of 1%.
I thank the Chief Financial Officer for that response. That's very helpful. The other question was with regard to the just discussed item, Harbor Users Advisory Committee. I presume that the composition of the advisory committee will be determined by staff in the terms of reference that are being developed. Am I correct in that assumption?
Staff, the motion refers this, the preparation of the terms of reference to staff.
Yes.
Councillor Palm, Southcott, and myself.
Okay.
The councillors will be working with staff to create a terms of reference, which will come back to be approved at a meeting in December.
I thank Councillor Dunn for the response. Thank you, Worship, for the opportunity.
Okay. Do we have any questions from anybody sitting here with us? Do we have any questions from anybody online?
No callers, Your Worship.
Great. Do we have a motion to go to a closed meeting? Councillor Almeida.
I move that following the adjournment of this meeting, council move to a closed meeting to discuss matters covered by the community charter under section 91. C, labor relations or other employee relations. G, litigation or potential litigation affecting the municipality. I, the receipt of advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. J, information that is prohibited or information that, if it were presented in a document, would be prohibited from disclosure under section 21 of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. L, discussions with municipal officers and employees respecting municipal objectives, measures, and progress reports for the purposes of preparing an annual report under section 98, annual municipal report. And N, the consideration of whether a council meeting should be closed under a provision of this subsection or subsection 2.
All in favor? That's unanimously. Do we have a motion? Councillor seconded. All in favor? Great. Thank you very much. We are now adjourned.